Good day, everybody. This is Jim Sloman speaking. The world has been on an extended party for approximately the last century, and the party has consisted primarily of four parts: oil, food, technology, and money expansion. Let's look briefly at each of those. The first component of the party, oil, is a non-renewable resource that has an incomparable energy return on energy invested and a superlative energy density. Nothing else even comes close. This resource was created by nature over countless millions of years, and humanity has used up approximately half of it in a little over a century. This amazing energy gift has powered the rise of modern civilization. It is not an exaggeration to say that modern civilization could not survive without oil at this moment in time. Our whole superstructure is built upon it. That was the first gift to the party. But the cheap oil that was easy to obtain is rapidly diminishing. We're having to use more and more sophisticated technology to obtain oil now, and that is expensive. The days of cheap oil are drawing to a close, and with it, the party that it fueled. The second component of the party has been an astonishing rise in the amount of food that humanity could grow. Humanity's yield per acre has risen multiple times in a single century, and that has enabled a rapid rise in the human population and now enables 7 billion human beings to exist on the earth. This astonishing rise in food production is directly related to the first gift, oil. If we study agriculture's green revolution, as it's called, we find that the overwhelming majority of the tremendous rise in food supply came from applying petroleum to agriculture production. Everything from mechanized tractors and combines to artificial fertilizers and pesticides made from fossil fuels, and then the use of oil to transport food over vast distances across the globe. But the great rise in food production has drastically tapered off in recent years because the process of adding petroleum to agriculture has just about reached its limits. The third great gift contributing to the party has been the rise of extremely sophisticated technology. Science began to arise in the 17th century, but its handmaiden, technology, really took off in the last century. Everything from automobiles to electric power to radio and TV to aircraft to computers and countless other things has taken place in the last century or so. Part of that technology, of course, has been the rise of nuclear power, both in the form of unimaginable bombs and in its seemingly more benign face of nuclear power plants. But as humanity is discovering, nuclear power isn't like other forms of power. If strip mining of coal denudes a landscape, it can grow back in a generation or two. If a huge oil spill occurs, it can be cleaned up at great effort and expense within perhaps a decade or 2 or 3. But some of the highly toxic byproducts of nuclear power can last for tens of thousands of years, and the problem of storing the radioactive waste from nuclear power plants is a problem that has not even begun to be solved. As we've seen in the recent tragedy in Japan, most nuclear waste is simply stored on site at nuclear reactors because, well, where else do you put it? It needs tremendous amounts of continuous cooling, and that is best provided by pumping millions of gallons of water through both the active and the spent radioactive fuel rods. That is why nuclear power plants are invariably located next to large bodies of water. But I have a question. Most human civilizations have lasted only a few hundred years, and even the most successful ones have lasted usually less than 1,000 years. How then do we provide for the storage of something that will need to be watched over for tens of thousands of years? Just asking. The fourth gift to the party has been the vast creation of money that has occurred in the last century as humanity gradually went off the gold standard. Gold has been called a barbarous metal, but its great virtue is that it cannot be created in unlimited quantities. When the money supply is gold coins, or is convertible into gold, the money supply is limited because the supply of gold is limited. Historians have been able to recreate prices in Britain going back about 700 years, and what they found is that while Britain was on the gold standard for 600 of those 700 years, that prices remained relatively stable. However, because of the immense expense of World War I, Britain went off the gold standard so it could create more money, and prices in Britain have been rising ever since. A similar story could be told elsewhere. In the United States, for example, the Federal Reserve Central Bank began operations in November of 1914, and the dollar has been losing value ever since. In 1934, the U.S. went off the domestic gold standard, and in 1971, the U.S. went off the international gold standard. The dollar has lost 96% of its value in the last century. But the U.S. and Britain are not unique. Every country in the world now has a fiat currency, meaning that the currency can be created in any amount at will, untethered to anything. And the vast amounts of money and credit that have been created in the last century have also fueled the party, as the growth of money and credit soared far beyond the growth of the underlying economies on which real wealth and prosperity rest. But these four gifts that have fueled this fantastic party of the last century are coming to an end in different ways. Peak oil is rapidly approaching, and in the opinion of many experts, it is already here. Food production per capita reached its peak in 1985 and has been declining ever since. In Japan, we're being reminded all over again, if we needed reminding, that technology which is so embedded in our lives now is very much a double-edged sword, with effects that can be very beneficial in some ways and very detrimental in others. For an example, just look at the oceans where over 90% of the large fish have disappeared due to industrialized fishing, or to the vast pollution of the biosphere, or to Fukushima. And finally, as the increasing growth in new money and credit have created larger and larger bubbles over the last few decades, bubbles which invariably crash either through fire or ice, hyperinflation or depression, we're beginning to see that unlimited money creation is also something that is rapidly approaching its endgame as well. Each of these four components of the party are each in their own way signaling that indeed there are limits, and that the fantastic energy and agriculture and technology and money creation party that has existed over the last century may in fact be drawing to a kind of close. And just as excess partying on a Saturday night can result in a massive hangover the next morning, humanity may be in the process of discovering that our party of the last century, built fundamentally on the concept of endless and unlimited growth in almost everything, may also have its own kind of global hangover. But in discovering that unlimited and endless anything may not be a good thing, that there are limits to everything after all, and that such limits may in fact be part of the wisdom of the universe, though humanity's discovery may be painful, it may be the very thing that wakes us up to creating a course for the future that is human-scale, nature-friendly, life-affirming, and sustainable. In closing, I'd like to read you a quote today from D.L. Moody, an American evangelist who lived from 1837 to 1899. Here it is. "A man cannot eat enough today to last him for the next 6 months, nor can he inhale enough air into his lungs in one breath to sustain him for a week. In a similar way, We are permitted to draw upon God's divine grace as we need it, from moment to moment to moment, and from day to day. That's all for today. May every possible good fortune be yours. Bye-bye now.